the hardest part about relationships isn't the fights or the misunderstandings or even the distance. It's those little moments when you finally open up, when you finally let someone see what's really going on inside you, and then one phrase shuts it all down. It's the phrase that makes you feel small, makes you second guess why you spoke up in the first place, and teaches you to keep quiet next time. Most of us don't even realize how often we hear it or how often we use it on the people we care about. But over time, that one phrase doesn't just end a conversation, it kills vulnerability. And when vulnerability dies, connection dies with it. So many of us walk through our relationships carrying this quiet heaviness, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, but never quite sure if it's safe to let our guard down. We've all felt that sting of opening up and then being met with words that made us regret saying anything at all. It's confusing because the people we love the most can also be the ones who make us shut down the fastest. And most of the time, it doesn't come from bad intentions. It comes from habits, from phrases we've picked up without thinking about the weight they carry. But here's the truth. When those words slip in, they don't just end a conversation, they chip away at the trust underneath it. And that's what I want to talk about today. How one simple phrase can quietly kill vulnerability and how to recognize it before it does. The words that shut people down without you knowing are rarely the loud ones. They're not the explosive arguments or the angry tones we all know how to recognize. They're the small, ordinary phrases we slip into conversations every single day without realizing the weight they carry. They sound harmless, even normal, but when they land in the wrong moment, on a heart that's already trying to be brave, they do more damage than we think. And here's the hard truth. We don't just hear these words, we also use them. Without meaning to, we end up silencing the very people we care most about. Think about the times you finally worked up the courage to say something real, maybe about how overwhelmed you feel, or how a small thing bothered you more than you expected. You take a breath, you open your mouth, you let that piece of your heart out into the open, and then it gets met with a phrase like, "You're overreacting," or "It's not that big of a deal," or "Just let it go." In an instant, the air goes out of you. That safe space you were hoping for disappears. And what hurts the most isn't just the words themselves. It's the message behind them. What you feel isn't worth taking seriously. Now, most people don't say those things with the intention of shutting someone down. They're not trying to hurt. In fact, they often think they're helping. They think they're putting the problem to perspective, calming things down, making it less heavy. But the person on the other side doesn't hear it that way. They hear dismissal, they hear rejection. They hear that opening up was a mistake, and if it happens enough times, they learn the lesson: don't share. It's not safe here. This is how trust starts to quietly unravel in relationships. Not usually with betrayal, not with one big fight, but with these tiny moments where someone was vulnerable and the door got closed instead of opened. Over time, it adds up. One comment here, another there, and before you know it, someone has stopped bringing things up altogether. You notice they're quieter. You notice the distance. You notice that conversations feel more shallow. And underneath all of that is the pain of words that were never meant to hurt, but did anyway. The challenge is that most of us don't realize we're doing it. We don't notice the impact because we're not on the receiving end. We only know what we meant. We only see the surface of the conversation. And when the other person shuts down, we sometimes even blame them for being too sensitive or too withdrawn. But what's really happening is that we've unknowingly created an environment where vulnerability costs too much. The risk of speaking up feels greater than the reward of being heard. And this is where empathy becomes so important, because empathy allows us to slow down and recognize that someone else's experience might be very different from how we see it. What feels like just words might feel like rejection to them. What feels like perspective to us might feel like invalidation to them. And the only way to bridge that gap is to be willing to look at not just what we said, but how it landed. That requires humility. It requires the courage to admit, I didn't mean it that way, but I see how it hurt you. I'll tell you something I've seen time and time again. People don't need perfect responses when they're vulnerable. They don't need the exact right phrase or some flawless reaction. What they need most is presence. They need to feel that the moment they took a risk and shared, they weren't punished for it. They weren't minimized. They weren't brushed off. They need to feel that even if you don't fully understand, you're willing to sit with them in it. That's what builds safety. That's what keeps vulnerability alive. Let's be honest. None of us get this right all the time. We've all said things in a moment that came out wrong. We've all defaulted to quick phrases that were easier than leaning into the discomfort of someone else's feelings. That doesn't make us bad people, it makes us human. But the difference between relationships that grow and ones that slowly erode is whether we're willing to own those moments and learn from them. Imagine the shift if, instead of saying, "You're overreacting," you said, "I can tell this really matters to you." Instead of "just let it go," you said, "I hear how heavy this feels." It doesn't mean you agree with everything. It doesn't mean you feel it the same way. It simply means you're making space for their experience without trying to edit it. And that's what keeps the door open. That's what turns a vulnerable moment into a connecting moment instead of a dividing one. The words we choose in these moments matter far more than we realize, because vulnerability is fragile. It doesn't need big betrayals to break it, just enough little cuts to convince someone that silence is safer. And when silence becomes the norm, intimacy disappears. You can live in the same house, share the same routines, even laugh at the same jokes, but the depth is gone. The trust has eroded, and all of it can trace back to words we never thought twice about. So if you take nothing else from this, take this. Every time someone opens up to you, you're holding something fragile, and how you respond will either teach them to trust you more or to trust you less. There's rarely a middle ground, and that responsibility isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to honor, because when we handle those moments with care, when we replace dismissive words with ones that show understanding, we create the kind of environment where vulnerability doesn't just survive, it thrives. That's how you build connection. Not through perfection, not through always having the right answer, but through the consistent choice to keep the door open when someone risks stepping through it. That's how trust is protected. That's how relationships grow deeper instead of weaker. And it starts with paying attention to the words that seem small but carry the power to either shut someone down or keep them safe enough to share again. The everyday phrases we use in our relationships carry more weight than we realize. They slip out without thought, words we've picked up from parents, friends, or culture, and on the surface they seem harmless. But in the moments when someone is brave enough to be honest, those small phrases can send a loud message. Don't share that again. And what's dangerous is that this doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly in pieces until we find ourselves more guarded, less open, and wondering why conversations feel shallow instead of real. Think about how many times you've heard or maybe even said something like, "You always do this," or "That's not what really happened," or "Why are you making it such a big deal?" None of those phrases sound explosive. They don't sound like insults or attacks. But when someone has just put their feelings on the table, those words cut deep. They tell the other person, your perspective isn't valid, your memory can't be trusted, your emotions don't belong here. And after hearing that enough times, most people learn a quiet lesson. It's safer to hold back. It's safer to stay surface level than risk being dismissed again. That's the hidden power of everyday language. It doesn't just communicate information, it creates the emotional climate of a relationship. A phrase as short as 5 words can decide whether someone feels closer to you or further away. And when those phrases lean toward minimizing, correcting, or dismissing, they slowly teach us to stop sharing altogether. Now, here's where empathy really matters. Most of the time, people don't mean to shut each other down. The husband who says, "It's not that big of a deal," isn't usually trying to wound his wife. He might honestly believe he's giving perspective or calming things down. The friend who says, "You're being too sensitive," might think they're toughening the other person up or helping them shake it off. But intention doesn't erase impact. And the impact of those phrases is that someone who came forward with honesty now feels smaller, weaker, or more foolish for doing so. That experience sticks, and so begins the cycle. One person takes the risk to open up, gets met with dismissal, and quietly resolves not to bring it up next time. The other person doesn't notice the shift right away. Maybe they even feel relief because there are fewer problems being voiced. But underneath, distance is building. What used to be opportunities for connection become walls of silence. And when silence takes over, intimacy dries up. You end up with a relationship that looks fine from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. We don't always see this erosion while it's happening because we've normalized these phrases. We grew up hearing them. We've repeated them so many times that they feel like the natural way to respond. But if you look closely, you'll see the effects. You'll notice the people you love hesitating before speaking. You'll notice they change the subject when things get uncomfortable. You'll notice that "I'm fine" becomes their answer more often than not. And all of it traces back to the lesson our everyday words taught them: sharing isn't worth it. This is why self-awareness is so critical in communication. It's not enough to avoid yelling or name calling. Emotional safety is built in the smaller, quieter choices of language. It's in how we respond when someone says, "I feel hurt," or "I need your support." Those moments are crossroads. We either validate and invite more honesty, or we dismiss and train the other person to pull away. So, what does it look like to shift those everyday phrases? It doesn't mean walking on eggshells or pretending to agree with everything. It means choosing language that leaves the door open instead of slamming it shut. For example, when you feel the urge to say, "You're overreacting," try instead, "I can see this is important to you." That one sentence doesn't require agreement, but it communicates respect. Or instead of saying, "That's not what happened," you can say, "That's not how I remember it, but I want to understand how you saw it." That small shift acknowledges your perspective without erasing theirs. These adjustments may feel small, but the difference they make is enormous, because the truth is, people don't need us to fix their feelings or rewrite their experiences. They need us to hold space for them. They need us to let their honesty exist without trying to correct it. That's how trust grows. That's how people feel safe to bring more of themselves into the relationship. Of course, this takes practice. Old habits die hard, and the phrases we're used to can slip out before we even notice. But growth isn't about never messing up. It's about recognizing when we do and being willing to repair. A simple, "I realize what I just said probably came across as dismissive. That's not what I meant. Let me try again," can do more to restore safety than pretending the moment didn't happen. That kind of humility shows the other person that their feelings matter enough for you to slow down and try again. And here's something else worth remembering. The way we respond doesn't just affect the other person, it also shapes who we become. Every time we choose empathy over dismissal, we're training ourselves to see beyond our own perspective. We're strengthening our ability to listen, to connect, to stay present in uncomfortable moments. That doesn't just make us better partners or friends, it makes us better human beings. So when we talk about everyday phrases teaching us to stop sharing, it's not just about avoiding bad words. It's about becoming aware of the impact our language has and choosing to use that power in a way that builds, not breaks. It's about realizing that even in the smallest exchanges, we are teaching the people around us whether it's safe to bring their whole selves to the table. And if we want relationships that are real and strong and lasting, then we have to pay attention to those moments. Because at the end of the day, most people don't stop sharing because they've run out of things to say. They stop because they've been taught, through subtle, everyday phrases, that their voice doesn't matter. And the good news is, if words have the power to close people off, they also have the power to invite them back in. The same tongue that can dismiss can also validate. The same habit that once shut down can be retrained to open up. It takes intention, it takes empathy, but it's possible. And when we start catching those phrases, when we replace them with language that communicates safety, something shifts. People begin to open up again. Conversations go deeper. Trust grows stronger. And suddenly, the relationship that felt distant begins to feel alive again, all because we learn to pay attention to the everyday words that were teaching us and the people we love, whether to keep sharing or to stay silent. Trust doesn't usually collapse from one big, dramatic moment. More often, it's chipped away little by little, and one of the ways that happens is through small comments. The kind of comments we don't even think twice about. A joke, made at the wrong time, a sarcastic remark, a quick dismissal. To us, they feel minor. To the person on the other side, they can feel like a crack in the foundation. And the truth is, when those cracks keep showing up, they don't stay small, they spread. They weaken the structure of the relationship until one day, trust just doesn't feel as solid anymore. Think about a time when you shared something that mattered to you only to hear, "That's silly," or "You're being dramatic." On the surface, those words don't sound cruel. They don't sound like betrayal. But if you were the one sharing, you probably felt the sting. You probably wondered if you should have stayed quiet, and you probably walked away a little less sure about whether you could trust that person with the softer parts of you. That's how small comments break big trust. They don't slam the door shut all at once. They slowly teach us that the door isn't as safe to walk through. The hardest part is that most of us don't mean to do it. The husband who teases his wife about being forgetful, the parent who tells a child, "Don't cry over that," the friend who shrugs off a serious confession with, "It's not that bad." They're not sitting there plotting how to hurt. They might even believe they're keeping things light or offering perspective or toughening someone up. But the person receiving it hears something different. They hear, "You can't count on me to take you seriously." And when you can't count on someone to take you seriously, the ground under that relationship doesn't feel steady anymore. Trust is fragile in that way. We often think it only breaks when someone lies, cheats, or betrays us in a major way. But trust is also about emotional safety. It's about knowing that when I risk showing you my feelings, you won't belittle them. It's about being confident that when I let my guard down, you won't use humor or sarcasm to cover up discomfort. Every time that safety is shaken, trust takes a hit, and enough of those hits add up. Picture it like this: every interaction is a deposit or a withdrawal in the bank of trust. When you listen, when you validate, when you respond with care, you're making deposits. The account grows. But when you throw in dismissive comments or cutting jokes, even if they're small, you're making withdrawals. And just like with money, it's not usually one big expense that empties the account. It's the little ones, day after day, that drain it dry. Here's where the self-awareness piece gets real. Because if we're honest, we've all been guilty of this. We've all brushed someone off without meaning to. We've all chosen sarcasm because it felt easier than sitting in discomfort. And we've all been on the other side of it too, feeling shut down by a small comment that lingered much longer than the person who said it ever realized. So the question isn't whether we've done it, but whether we're willing to see it and change it. One of the most damaging things about small comments is how easy they are to dismiss. The person who said it might not even remember the words 10 minutes later, but the person who heard it can carry it for weeks. That imbalance is what makes it so painful. When your pain doesn't even register as memorable to the other person, it deepens the wound. It makes you feel invisible, and invisibility is one of the fastest ways to erode trust. Now, this doesn't mean we can never joke or that we have to walk on eggshells in every conversation. Humor has a place, lightness has a place, but timing and intent matter. If someone is vulnerable, if someone is opening up, that is not the moment to make a joke at their expense. That is not the time to minimize. That is the time to lean in, to show with their response that their trust in sharing was not misplaced. Because when people feel safe in those moments, trust doesn't just hold, it grows stronger. And here's something I want you to notice: trust is built not by grand gestures, but by small consistencies. The same way small comments can erode trust, small affirmations can rebuild it. A simple, "I hear you," or "that makes sense to me," goes further than we realize. It tells the other person, "I value what you're sharing. I see it. I see you." That's what makes people feel safe to come back again with more. That's how the foundation of trust stays strong. But it takes humility, because sometimes the only way to repair the damage of a small comment is to admit we were wrong in saying it. That can sound like, "I realize I brushed you off earlier, and I'm sorry. I want to hear what you were trying to tell me." Those words might feel uncomfortable, but they are powerful. They show accountability. And accountability is what tells the other person, even when I get it wrong, you can trust me to make it right. Let's be real, none of us are going to eliminate every careless comment from our vocabulary. We're human. We'll get tired, we'll get distracted, and things will slip out. But if we can own them when they do, if we can stay attentive to the impact our words are having, we can protect the trust that matters most. It's not about being perfect, it's about being aware and being willing to repair. Because at the end of the day, trust isn't just about promises kept. It's about experiences shared. It's about creating an environment where the people closest to us know they won't be shamed, mocked, or minimized for what they feel. That environment doesn't happen by accident. It's built intentionally through the language we choose and the care we show. And every time we resist the temptation to throw in a cutting remark, every time we replace dismissal with empathy, we're strengthening that environment. So, if you've ever wondered why a relationship feels distant or why someone close to you has stopped opening up, it's worth asking yourself, what small comments might I have missed? Not to shame yourself, but to recognize the places where repair is possible. Because the same way small comments can break trust, small acknowledgments, small apologies, small choices of empathy can rebuild it. And when that happens, when the small things are handled with care, the big things don't feel so threatening. Because trust is no longer fragile. It's strong, steady, and built on the daily practice of choosing words that honor the connection you want to keep. The hidden language that closes people off is rarely the kind we notice in the moment. It's not usually shouting or cursing or obvious disrespect. It's the subtle ways we speak, the tone, the size, the quick replies that tell someone, without us ever saying it directly, I don't want to go deeper with you. This language hides in everyday conversations, and because it's quiet, we don't recognize it for what it is. But the person on the receiving end feels it. They feel the wall it creates, and over time, they stop trying to climb over it. You've probably experienced it. You share something you're struggling with, and the other person answers with a distracted. Or you start to open up, and they cut you off with advice you didn't ask for. Maybe they roll their eyes, or make a joke to lighten the mood, or change the subject to something safer. None of that seems big, but the message is clear: this conversation isn't welcome here. And because none of us want to feel like a burden, we pull back, we choose silence over risk. That's how relationships end up full of surface talk. Plenty of words, but not much connection. The tricky part about hidden language is that it's often unintentional. A partner might think they're helping by saying, just don't think about it, or a friend might use humor because they're uncomfortable with emotions. A parent might cut their child off mid-sentence because they're in a hurry. They don't mean to close the door, but the effect is the same. The person trying to open up walks away thinking, that was too much, I won't bring it up again. And here's where it gets even more complicated. The hidden language that closes people off isn't always in what we say. It's also in how we say it. Tone communicates more than words. A sharp sigh, a clipped response, an impatient glance at the phone while someone's talking. All of these send a signal. We may not even be aware we're doing it, but the other person feels the shift instantly. They feel small, inconvenient, unimportant, and nothing shuts people down faster than feeling like they don't matter in the moments they're most vulnerable. Think about the last time you shared something tender with someone and their body language told you they weren't fully there. Maybe they didn't look up from the screen. Maybe their shoulders stiffened. Maybe they changed the subject right after you finished talking. Even if their words didn't sound harsh, the hidden language underneath said everything. I can't hold this with you right now. That's the kind of moment that sticks. And here's the danger when this hidden language repeats itself over time. People stop knocking on the door. They stop testing if maybe this time it will feel different. Instead, they adapt. They keep conversations light. They share the safe stuff. They tell you about their day, but not about their heart. And slowly, a distance forms that neither person can quite explain. You're still talking, still interacting, but the connection feels thin. The hidden language has done its work. This is why awareness matters so much. Because once you start noticing the signals you send, you realize how much power you have to either invite people in or push them away. A soft, tell me more, communicates safety. An attentive pause, a nod, a genuine, I hear you, tells the other person their words landed. On the other hand, Cutting someone off mid-sentence or brushing their feelings aside communicates the opposite, whether we mean it to or not. And the truth is, in relationships, impact always outweighs intention. I know for many people this can feel heavy, like, do I have to watch every word I say? Do I have to monitor every tone? But the point isn't to be perfect. The point is to be mindful, to care enough about the person in front of you that you check in with yourself before responding. Am I listening or am I rushing? Am I making space or am I shutting this down because it's uncomfortable? Those small check-ins can completely change the course of a conversation. Let's get practical. Instead of saying, you shouldn't feel that way, which closes the door, try, I can see this is hard for you. Instead of sighing and saying, here we go again, when someone repeats a struggle, try, I know you've been carrying this for a while. Those aren't big, dramatic statements, but they open space instead of closing it. They tell the other person, you're safe here, keep going, and that safety is the oxygen of any real relationship. Of course, there will be moments when we get it wrong. We'll be tired, distracted, or stressed, and we'll send the wrong signal. That's human. What matters is whether we're willing to repair. A simple, I realize I was dismissive earlier, and I don't want that to be the message you take from me. I care about what you're feeling, can reopen a door that hidden language tried to close. And sometimes that repair builds even more trust than if we had gotten it right the first time. Another piece of this is honesty with ourselves. Sometimes we use hidden language because we're avoiding our own discomfort. It's easier to joke than to sit with someone else's sadness. It's easier to change the subject than to admit we don't have answers. But relationships don't need our solutions. They need our presence. Vulnerability doesn't require us to fix, only to stay. And if we can learn to sit with the discomfort without rushing to cover it up, the people we love will feel that difference. The hidden language that closes people off thrives in silence and unawareness. The moment you bring it into the light, the moment you start naming it and catching it, you take away its power. You begin to replace it with a new kind of language, one that invites, that validates, that keeps the door open. It doesn't mean you'll never slip into old habits, but it means you'll be aware enough to notice and intentional enough to shift. And that's how connection is built, not through grand speeches or perfect conversations, but through the steady, everyday choice to speak in a way that keeps people close, through tone that says, I'm with you, through words that say, I see you, through silence that says, I don't have to fix this. I just have to stay here with you. That's the kind of language that holds relationships together, even in the hard moments. Because in the end, people rarely walk away from relationships because of the big fights alone. More often, they walk away because of the small signals that told them over and over it wasn't safe to bring their whole selves. And the good news is we can change that. We can choose a language, both spoken and unspoken, that opens instead of closes, that heals instead of distances, that says clearly you belong here with me as you are. When conversations die before they begin, it usually isn't because people don't care or don't want to connect. Most of the time, it's because of the way those first few moments are handled. A look, a tone, a rushed answer. They can all shut a door before it's even fully opened. And when that happens repeatedly, the people in the relationship learn to stop trying. They learn to stay quiet. And before long, you've got two people who still talk, but not about what actually matters. You know what this looks like. A spouse takes a deep breath and says, can we talk about something that's been on my mind? And the response is, right now, I'm tired. Or, what now? Or maybe it's a child walking into the room wanting to share a story, and the parent says, not now, I'm busy. Or a friend tries to be honest about something painful, and the other person laughs it off before it ever gets serious. These aren't explosive moments, they don't look like fights, but they quietly kill the very thing a conversation needs most, the belief that what I have to say will be received. What makes this so painful is that the person bringing something up is often already battling fear. They've already wrestled with questions like, should I say this? Will they understand? Will it make things worse? By the time they finally speak, they've worked up courage, and then to have it brushed aside in the first 5 seconds, that doesn't just end the conversation. It makes them regret trying at all. That regret teaches them a lesson next time. Don't bother. And that's how conversations die before they begin. The tricky thing is that most of us don't see it happening in real time. We don't realize how much weight those opening moments carry. To us, saying, "I'm too tired right now," feels honest. Saying, "It's not a big deal," feels like perspective. But to the other person, it sounds like rejection. And rejection, even in small doses, chips away at trust. It tells them their timing is wrong, their feelings are inconvenient, their voice isn't welcome here. And it doesn't take many of those experiences before silence becomes the safer choice. You can hear it in couples who say, "We just don't talk anymore." You can feel it between parents and teenagers who live in the same house but barely share anything real. You can see it in friendships that used to feel alive but now revolve around surface level updates. The conversations didn't stop because there was nothing left to say. They stopped because the people involved learned there was no safe place to start. This is why presence matters so much more than perfection. You don't have to know exactly what to say when someone opens up. You don't have to have the right answer or fix the problem. But what you can't afford to do is shut the door in the first 5 seconds, because those 5 seconds determine whether the conversation grows or withers. A simple, "Okay, I'm listening," or even, "I want to hear this. Can we talk in 10 minutes when I can give you my full attention?" communicates safety. It says, "You matter enough for me to make space." And that alone can keep the door open. I've seen so many people avoid conversations not because they don't trust themselves to speak, but because they don't trust how the other person will respond. They've tested the waters before and been met with impatience, sarcasm, or indifference. And once that pattern sets in, the relationship shifts. People start keeping score. Silently, "Last time I tried, it didn't go well. Why put myself through that again?" And over time, those unspoken tallies add up to distance. What's even harder is when the person who unintentionally shuts things down doesn't realize what's happening. They may look at the quietness and think, "See, there's nothing wrong. Everything's fine." Meanwhile, the other person is carrying hurt they never got the chance to voice. That gap between appearances and reality is where resentment grows. And resentment, once it sets in, is hard to undo. So what do we do about it? The first step is to slow down in those opening moments. Notice your tone. Notice your body language. Notice the urge to brush something off because you're tired or uncomfortable. If you can pause long enough to choose presence instead of dismissal, you'll give the conversation a chance to live. Sometimes that means saying, "I want to hear this, but I need a minute to clear my head so I can give you my full attention." That honesty doesn't close the door. It actually keeps it open. It tells the other person, "Your words matter enough for me to make room." Another step is learning to welcome the first attempt, even if it's messy. People rarely start perfectly when they're being vulnerable. They stumble. They come in with emotion, sometimes even irritation. And if our first reaction is to criticize how they brought it up, the conversation dies right there. But if we can look past the delivery and lean into the heart of what they're trying to say, we give them a reason to keep going. That shift can be the difference between shutting down and finally opening up. And we have to be honest with ourselves too. Sometimes the reason conversations die before they begin is because we've built a pattern of not being safe to approach. Maybe we've been defensive. Maybe we've been dismissive. Maybe we've been too quick to correct or too quick to joke. Owning that isn't about blaming ourselves. It's about realizing the power we have to change the pattern. Because if we helped teach someone it wasn't safe to speak, we can also help teach them that it is. Repair is possible. It starts with words like, "I know I've shut you down before, and I don't want to keep doing that. I want you to feel like you can come to me." That kind of humility disarms people. It reopens doors that may have been closed for a long time. And once those doors start opening again, conversations don't just survive, they thrive. Because here's the truth: most people want to talk. Most people want to connect. We are wired for it. We crave being known. But we need safe entry points. We need to know that when we risk stepping into a conversation, we won't be turned away in the first moments. And the responsibility for creating those entry points falls on all of us. Not perfectly, not every single time, but consistently enough that the people we love know it's safe to begin with me. When conversations die before they begin, relationships slowly starve. But when we learn to guard those opening moments, when we replace dismissal with presence, when we create safety instead of rejection, conversations don't just survive, they become the very thing that keeps the relationship alive.